It is 6:22 a.m., 13th Friday. It is June 2014. We are glad you're watching Morning Express. The weekend just around the corner. Hope you're excited for it, even as the World Cup began yesterday. Games continue today, and it will be interesting to see how this one goes. But on your roads this morning, Kangundo Road is moving slowly. These are updates on my three routes. Traffic on Bagathi heading to town. Mombasa Road, somebody says, is Nyue. All is good there. However, there's been an accident on Kiambu Road. That's past Total Rejoice towards town. If not cleared now, you will know what that will mean in the coming hours. And those are the updates that right now we're seeing on my three routes. We'll continue to monitor and keep you posted. But as you head out as well, let us know how it's looking where you are, and we'll keep everybody in the know and moving. Tweet me at Sophia Wanuna. Let's get into our press review this morning, beginning with the Standard newspaper. Of course, the leading story is the budget today. We saw the Cabinet Secretary Rotich read it out yesterday. And what Rotich didn't tell you about his budget, that is the headline. And Jubilee's second budget was dubbed Mwananchi's, but the question is where cash for ambitious promises will come from, with the Treasury left with 342 billion shillings deficit, of which 192 billion shillings will be borrowed locally. Here, Rotich is quoted as saying, "We will strengthen revenue collection by bringing into the tax net all potential taxpayers." Remember, there's usually quite a number of gaps on that and hold. So this entails implementing reforms to enhance revenue administration capacity. So boost for energy sector, it has been allocated 43.6 billion as state seeks to fire up production units. Of course, that's in shillings. MPs to smile as CDF enriched each constituency to receive 100 million shillings. The Kenya Defence Forces, bogged down in Somalia and due to terror attacks, has received a whopping 71 billion shillings. New road projects gets even more than that, standing at 117 billion shillings. And this is as part of expanding of the transport sector, hence that allocation. The railway line and most of the standard gauge railway line and commuter rail allocated 23 billion shillings. Rebuilding the police force, Jubilee promised to enhance security, and police will get 66 billion shillings. And of course, in the following pages is continuing coverage on the budget, the national budget 2014-2015, and tough times ahead as state seeks to raise the 1.8 trillion shillings to finance the budget, that running across page 223. And the Treasury CS says that government is set to start reviewing Income Act in July. And life just got tougher for Kenyans who must raise that 1.8 trillion shillings through taxes, as outlined in yesterday's national budget statement, which is set to introduce several painful measures. So it was widely expected that the budget would reverse some of the measures that have raised the cost of basic commodities. Among the sources of revenue that President Kenyatta's government is considering is an increase in income tax for salaried employees. So some highlights for you now very quickly. You have 294.55 billion shillings for free primary and secondary education and teachers' salaries as well. 17.5 billion shillings for food security and agriculture. Also 28.99 billion shillings for enhanced security, for investment, growth and employment. And you also have in there 116.7 billion shillings for construction of the ongoing new roads, as well as other measures you can read about what was highlighted yesterday. On page 3, you have there pictured the National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich, and also the devolution CS just sitting not too far from him, quietly, listening through the proceedings yesterday. And the day that was, with the devolution CS in the House, MPs kept interrupting the proceedings with shouts of Linturi. Of course, Linturi was missing in action. He was not in the House. And that, of course, coming from the fact that there's that impeachment motion against her, led by him. It's in process now, and we wait to see how that story will develop. So it was cheer and cheer as Rotich made his budget speech, and we have seen quite a number of the leaders from Jubilee come out to laud the budget and say it is good, and we'll continue to get more reactions even from the business community and Kenyans as well today, even as more people get an understanding of the implications of the budget are. Page 4, Rotich's new austerity measures to cut wastage, and the state hopes to save 13 billion shillings for slashing spending on travel, hospitality and advertisements as well. The National Treasury has announced a raft of measures to contain wastage in ministries and state agencies. It has also cut expenditure to travel for state officials, hospitality and advertisement. Usually some of the areas we really see a lot of this waste happening, an area and an issue that has been of concern. And as they say, they are hoping to be able to get into those and ensure those that wastage does not continue. It will be interesting to see whether they will be successful in that. So battling security, 2.9 billion to recruit 10,000 police officers is also just one of the allocations we saw. And for free healthcare, I mean, healthcare, a big one, and 4 billion shillings for free access to maternal health. We talked about that yesterday, just the day before yesterday, and coming to 4 is the importance of funds to go into the health sector, more so to get those trained personnel to be able to, to take care of patients as they come into the hospitals, clinics, dispensaries and the likes. Energy development, 43.6 billion for development of the energy sector. E-learning in schools getting 17.4 billion shillings to buy school laptops and develop content. Yes, those laptops are still waiting for them, the country is. Youth, women and empowerment, 8.8. For women and youth empowerment, just measures to ensure that they are standing in a better position compared to their counterparts. Page 6 again. Coverage of the budget continues, and do grab yourself a copy of the Standard newspaper because you'll get to read more about the different fields that got those allocations. You have the wildlife sector, manufacturing, you got transport. So there's an equalization fund which has that 3.4 billion shillings allocated, and this is for the marginalized counties. Of course, they don't all the counties get the same allocations, and for those that are marginalized, there's that particular kitty there to ensure that they are put in a better place to still grow and perhaps catch up with the other counties. So economic stimulus, digital service, health equipment, youth employment, as well employment of the youth has been a big issue. The rate of unemployment remaining to be very high in the country, and so you can read about the various allocations to this fields that I've just read out to get a clear picture of how it's looking. Kenyans spared from further taxation, so economy could grow at a 5.8% to generate revenues for the government, even without any adjustment in tax rates. And of course, more coverage. It is page by page, blow by blow analysis for you in the Standard newspaper. Grab yourself a copy today to just get that clear picture of the budget that was read out yesterday. Back page has your sporting action. Of course, in a short while, my colleague will be coming to break down for us a little bit of what we saw yesterday as the World Cup kicked off. But Brazil, Croatia start World Cup campaign, and 3-1 it was. And I understand, I didn't get to watch the game, but I understand it was a 3-1 results, beginning with an own goal. That's quite interesting. But of course, the details of the same in the Standard newspaper. Crossing now to the Daily Nation, Jubilee spends big on security and school security, very important, coming at a time when Kenya has been grappling with that runaway insecurity. So very much appropriate that a lot of money does go into ensuring the security of all Kenyans. Little sign of austerity as Rotich unveils 1.8 trillion budget in which he gives generous allocations to various sectors in the economy. The winners outlined for you there, just to read a little for you. Tourism industry, 2.5 billion shillings has been set aside to send at least 300,000 Kenyans on holiday to revive the industry reeling from travel advisories. And you have 13.4 billion shillings will be used to cushion poor households with additional resources to take care of orphans and elderly people as well. Some of the losers, 25% increase in import duty for iron and steel, up from 0% and 10% respectively. This will affect the construction sector. Also, one of the losers, the multinationals put on the spot as the government cracks the whip on transfer pricing, a business practice that has in the past seen them pay less taxes. And also just Daily Nation continuing with the budget special, talking about the police education given top priority. Also, he popped in, he read the budget and flew out again, is a story that's on page 3 in the Daily Nation. So Rotich has engaged in a delicate balancing act in his quest to balance between tough economic choices and popular decision in his speech. And I guess that's cartoon, they're trying to depict him. But most of what he has done is predictable. There have been no sudden changes. Those are the words of an analyst, Robert Bunyi. Also here, minimum amount the government is seeking to raise through the Euro bond, that's 131.6 billion shillings. And this could rise to 175.5 billion shillings. Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich left for the UK yesterday to market the bond to investors. So yeah, that's what that headline is about, flying out immediately pretty much after he read out the budget. It's all about getting those monies to finance that huge budget. Also, that special continues for you on page 4. Security schools get more attention while families grapple with high cost of living. That is still an issue of concern. And Daily Nation has broken down that for you in terms of when you're talking about transport and communication, which areas and what amount are they getting. And there you have that breakdown you're looking at on your screen as well. And Rotich gave roads and power the lion's share. So Minister allocates lion's share to roads with a massive 116.7 billion shillings of total expenditure. That's one of the biggest allocation we have seen there. And this, you know, hoping to go into just getting more construction, new roads constructed, expansion perhaps. We've seen some of the roads. One of the issues in terms of traffic is because of roads that really need that expansion to take place, and perhaps better planning in the ones that have been put in place as well. So governors reject Rotich criteria for county allocation is on page 10, and you can read more about that. Back page is lawyers faults officials in Sholei case, and Abdullahi accuses top government officers of blocking anti-graft agency from releasing files on ex-chief registrar. So lawyer Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi yesterday claimed that powerful forces blocked the release of investigation files that could lead to the prosecution of former chief registrar Gladys Boss-Sholei. The People, or rather the Star. Before we go to the People, we have Uhuru bets big in the 1.7 trillion shillings budget. Again, more budget news for you. And security, infrastructure, education, health gets the lion's share, as we have already talked about. Also, the front page, the picture there is Brazil shake off Croatia in opener. Just imagine a situation where Brazil lost yesterday. That would have been interesting, right? Yeah, we'll talk about that shortly. But also, front page, CS Waiguru survives as Linturi fails to show up. So you have the Star reporting that the devilish and secretary Anne Waiguru has survived threats by MPs to kick her out. This became clear when Igembe South MP Linturi failed to appear in the House yesterday to give notice of motion of impeachment. There was anger in the ranks of MPs who had signed the petition for Waiguru's removal when Linturi failed to show up. Yeah, politics. Right, Jubilee and CORD MPs respond to budget. Read about those. We saw some of what they had to say early in our bulletin. So lawmakers have given mixed reactions to the government's funding priorities for the year's budget. Kenyans in Ukraine are safe. That is what the Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary is saying. Of course, there's been turmoil in that country, and of course there are Kenyans living there, and the Cabinet Secretary is saying that they are safe, the Kenyans who are living in Ukraine. We want to cut our girls, Maasai women tell the state. In other news, on page 3, so more than 2,500 women from 8 Maasai clans in Kajiado yesterday said they are on strike until the government repeals the Female Genital Mutilation Act and allows them to circumcise their daughters. And this is not the first time we're seeing this women coming out to protest. It is an illegal practice in Kenya. And they maintain they want it back. And some of the reasons they cite for why they want it back is because they have not, their girls, they say, are not getting married because men in their community would want to marry girls who've undergone the process. But of course, one that should continue to be rejected by all means, and perhaps what is needed in such a situation, as we spoke to Jabi Kilomo, former MP, and also the head of the parastatal in charge of one of these issues, is a kind of education, understanding that this is not the all of the culture, and that there needs to be a change and a shift, but definitely seeing those protests and demonstration a clear indicator that more work at the ground level, the grassroots level, there needs to be done to change and help the community move from that. Page 4, Embu residents filed suit to remove the speaker. Mate, you remember him? Yes, the one who had been kidnapped, gone missing for about 5 days. So 12 Embu County residents have moved to court seeking to remove the Assembly Speaker, Kariuki Mate, from the office for misconduct. That's what he's been accused of. They filed an urgent petition at the High Court yesterday claiming that Mate has been conducting himself in a manner inconsistent with requirements of the office he holds. They said it is unconstitutional for him to continue holding public office. It's a story we'll continue to watch for you as it develops. Ombora also wants his case heard by 3-judge bench is another story that's on that page. Embattled Embu Governor Martin Ombora wants a case challenging his removal from office handled by a 3-judge bench. Through lawyer Wilfred Nyamu, he told Justice George Odunga that by the time he filed the petition, the Senate had not impeached him. And more stories covered for you there, including Raila calling for Saba cells committees. That's on page 6. CORD leader Odinga was yesterday accorded a hero's welcome in Kisumu. That's where he was, and he was where he has issued an ultimatum to the Jubilee government and saying it has no option but to dialogue with the Coalition for Reforms and Democracy. Finally, let's have a look at the People on the front page. Today, it's give, but that's the headline in the People today. Growth budget, National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich lavishes hefty allocations on security, transport and agriculture, tourism and other sectors, but leaves taxation measures in abeyance, raising questions over cost of consumer goods. Again, the People breaks down for you those figures and what we saw happen yesterday. 3.5 billion shillings for security, transport 22.9 billion shillings, as well as other sectors. Harambee Stars head for Brazil. We told you about that story where the president, Uhuru Kenyatta, has sponsored the national team to watch the World Cup. Perhaps that will serve as some inspiration for the next World Cup 2022 to start working very hard to qualify. And that, as of 6:41, is a look at how your dailies are looking this morning. Grab yourself a copy of the Standard. And also you'll read there on page 26 where Raila gets rousing reception in Kisumu. Baba welcome. So read more there in the Standard.